think we're live.
Yeah, we are live, but I'm not seeing it on Kick. All right, I'll solve for that later. This is how all podcasts should start. They should just roll into a lot of mistakes and a lot of setting up. I'm Eric Reynolds, and I'm the host of Corrupted Memory Card. This show's about the 25 years I've spent in the video game industry, but through a mix of neurospiciness and ADHD, I've pretty much forgotten everything that's ever happened. So over the next many episodes, I'm going to invite friends from all over the industry to help me remember these amazing last 25 years. And I'd like to introduce Eric Burke as my very first guest, because I wouldn't be a gamer without my gaming buddy. And over the last 30 plus years, we have stayed connected. We have been each other's co-op partner through every RPG, every shooter, every game you can imagine. So without further ado, hi, Eric.
And I like how Eric softened it. I asked him earlier when we were talking about how long we've been gaming together. I said, let's make that sound like a little bit less so we don't seem so old.
So we don't seem as old? No, we are.
But we are what we are, right?
Yeah. So
the gray beard kind of shows it, right? How many years we've been gaming?
Basically, it just absolutely betrays our age, no matter what. So, man, like, you're my battle buddy. Like, literally, we started playing games at like 8 or 9 years old. I remember your parents had the PC in the kitchen so that you couldn't, sneakily play games all night.
It was the dining room.
The dining room, that's right.
Yeah, it was the dining room. And that was also where the internet came in with the 3800 baud modem, So when we were trying to download pictures of women, it took like 20 minutes line by line,
That's freaking awesome. I fell ass backwards into the video game industry, and I'm going to talk about that in later podcasts with my friends from Nintendo. But the very first gaming machine I ever really had was the Atari 2600. But the moment that I knew I was a hardcore gamer is when my brother Mark bought me the Commodore 64, and then later the Commodore 128.
Yeah,
and that's where you and I really pick up and start playing games together.
Yeah, we started gaming when you had the Commodore 128. I had the Commodore 64, and I remember, growing up as a kid, and my parents subscribed me to a magazine where in the back of the magazine it had the code to write a game, and you would write it into the Commodore 64. But when we first started hanging out, we were in 6th grade, I think, and you had the Commodore 128, and you had it on the floor in your bedroom. It was in a corner. And we would sit there on the floor and play Pool of Radiance, where we would which is a very basic 3D game where you just kind of walk down, and it was like a dungeon, and you made right turns and left turns, but then it would go into the combat screen, and we'd make a deal who controlled which characters. We would make the characters where there's a ranger or a wizard and stuff, and we would take turns controlling our guys on this little hexagonal thing when we moved them, and they would fire little fire bolts and stuff.
Yeah, and what's wild is that years later, I got to work with Don Daglow, who was one of the programmers on that game, and he was the owner of a studio called Stormfront then, and we were working on a fantasy novel. You would know this. It's like an indie fantasy novel that blew up. See, this is what this podcast is about. I've literally forgotten everything I've ever worked on.
It's something I probably read because I read everything sci-fi, everything fantasy. So
yes, it was written by a 17-year-old who lived in Wyoming, and literally he just created a world for himself.
Isn't that most books on Amazon Kindle now? Where everybody self-publishes. It's all a 17-year-old kid writing this new lit RPG novel. I think that's kind of the standard now.
And I missed out on all that, man. I would have been all over that world.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where we started was Pools of Radiance, and we never finished that game, did we? Because that game was horrible.
No, we made it till I don't know if we ever beat the final boss, but we made it to the end. I can't remember that we beat it because we made it to the pool, and it was this massive end battle. but I don't remember we ever beat the end battle. That's kind of,
Oh,
but this is one of those things we might need to go find that game and see if we can get an emulator just to replay it to make sure we beat it.
definitely. And I think in the VOD version of the podcast, I will go hunt down video of that ending just to see if it strikes any memories with me. Um, when did you start gaming?
So I think so I grew up, my parents would not buy me an Atari. I always played it at friends' house. And I remember, I think I was probably fourth grade and my godfather bought me a Nintendo. And my parents were really against it. And I had all these sorts of rules around it when I could play it, I could play it for like 30 minutes a week or something, and I had Zelda. So it was Zelda was my first game. And then I played, at friends' house, the Super Mario Brothers. But that was kind of like my intro. I never really I think I remember playing Combat a little bit at like family members' houses on Atari. But my first home console gaming was Nintendo. Before that, arcade games, like my most vivid memories and my favorite games of all time are
Remember
still
Aladdin's
Galaga.
Castle?
What's that?
You remember Aladdin's Castle?
I remember Aladdin's Castle. I didn't play that one. It was Galaga and Kung Fu.
No,
Side
Aladdin's
scrolling.
Castle was the arcade in Lynn Haven Mall.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. And you had the little tokens. Actually, funny enough, I think I still have some tokens that I found in like my parents had boxes of stuff I had with Aladdin's Castle tokens.
Yeah, yeah. So, what games were you saying you played in arcades?
Kung Fu, which was
Yeah,
this side-scrolling one, and
I had that on
Galaga.
Commodore 128 as well because that was
I
hard.
128. The only you were the one with the high-speed 128. I never got the 128.
That's because my brother was like, "I sense a nerd in thee. I shall supply thee with the technical tools it takes to bring this nerd to fruition."
I remember on the Commodore though, and even when we went into the early PCs, like I remember when we got a 386, and it still had the 5 1/4 floppy drives, right? And
Dude,
you got a disc with games on it, and it had like 38 games on it, and and they were like Atari quality games, but
yeah,
they were cool, and you were like, but this is a new one, and we would play it.
it's like 6 discs, and you're like, "Put in disc number 2 now." And
Well, no, that was getting advanced. That was when we got into like, and I remember, and that was in I would have to say that was high school, or no, maybe like senior, junior high, early high
like
school.
junior high.
Yeah, we got a first 386, and I remember, and it had a 400 megabyte hard drive, and I thought that was like the largest thing you could ever imagine. And I wanted to play games on it, and I got a game. It was X-wing fighters or something, and my dad was like, "Don't fill up the hard drive." And I told Dad, I was like, "Dad, there is no possible way I could ever fill up 400 megabytes. I mean, that is massive." But the game itself had 8 3.5-inch floppy drives to install the game, and you had to load with each disc to load the game on there. But it was a really cool game.
That's wild. That's wild. So going back to Japan, right? So you were how old in Japan? Like,
When I lived in Japan, I was like 8 and 9 years old when I lived in Japan.
so did you get? So did your did your godfather get you the Nintendo when you were in Japan, or when you moved to Virginia Beach?
No, that was actually so. After we left Japan, we moved to Florida, and that's when my godfather got me the Nintendo.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was because we left Japan, we moved to Florida, and that's because even when I was in Japan, I didn't play video games at all. It wasn't
Mhm.
really a thing. Like there was a lot of things in Japan, and there was a lot of interesting anime was the huge thing. And it was when I moved, in that kind of third, fourth, fifth grade era where Nintendo came around, and that's when like video games just kind of took off the chart, and that became like the thing to
Mhm.
do.
Now, see, I had to. Okay, after like I remember the Commodore 64 and 128 era for us because that's when I learned how to pirate games. And I'm not proud of it as someone who's in the industry now. But you remember going back to Babbage's and like, this game doesn't work on my computer. I'm sorry. After like fully copying the discs and copying the radial wheels that were the DRM at the time. I think I did that with like 5 or 6 games, and then started feeling really guilty about it. And I'm like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I can't do
That
this.
was the 386 for me. That's when our friends and we started copying each other's discs and then turning games back in.
Yeah.
And you had this little piece of paper that came in the box with the
Mhm.
code, and you just write down the
Like
code.
turn to chapter 4, word
That's,
7.
that
Now
was
you
because it was
click.
before internet, right? You're just putting a code that came with it, and the game doesn't recognize it because there's nothing checking.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. Um, so yeah, I mean, I remember a couple things in the early days of us playing games. Obviously, like the Commodore 64 and 128 era uh, were a bunch of games that were kind of experimenting with like 2.5D, um, like Pools of Radiance, like Army Rain, like Airborne Ranger, uh, which you later became in real life. Um, and there's another game. Was it Karateka?
I remember the name. I don't remember the game.
Yeah, it was kind of like a fighting game, except it was you versus the computer, and every level, like sort of the temple, you fought someone harder.
That was Kung Fu. Kung
Was
Fu
that
was
Kung
like
Fu?
that.
Okay,
You
maybe.
came across and you would fight left and you'd fight a boss, and then you
Yes,
go
okay, that
right
was
and
Kung
fight a
Fu.
boss.
I think I'm thinking of like a bad '80s karate movie.
Yeah, it was like you had kick and punch, and you did a high kick, low kick.
Low
That
kick,
game,
low punch. Yeah,
I still, if I run into that in like a classic arcade place, I play that game because it was so awesome. There was a lot of like beating that, beating the
just
heck out of the
beating the
buttons.
shit out of like when we used to use like the Atari controllers on the Commodore 64 because you could adapt them.
I remember that, yeah,
Um,
especially the paddles.
yeah, the paddles were huge, and but I remember I remember going into the arcade and each of us having like $20, like that was our budget, right? It's kind of like okay,
Eric, I
it's
think
like
you're remembering wrong.
what
It was less than $20 because $20 we could have played for 2 weeks back in those days.
was it, like 10
It was like
bucks
$10.
or $5 or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. You got a lot of tokens for that back
I don't
then.
know, like Outrun and Afterburner were like $2 or play.
Yeah, it was a lot of tokens. But I
Yeah.
remember you used to get like 8 tokens for $1 back when we were in the arcades. It
Okay.
wasn't like 4 tokens for $1.
Okay. Yeah. And I just remember like that. I remember like kids, like you were much cooler than I. Like kids our age were like going to the mall to like meet up with some girls and like walk around the mall and talk about people. And I'm like, I want to go look at the figurines in the trading card shop, and I want to go to the arcade and uh,
I always skirted both. I was kind of on both edges of those lines,
yeah,
depending on who I was with.
you actually had friends. I sort of had acquaintances that I latched on to. Um, but in Aladdin's Castle, like I remember,
It was
uh,
Lynnhaven, right?
it was Lynn Haven Mall. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it was on the second floor.
yeah.
Um, I remember like playing that Star Wars game where it was like basically a depth of field video game where you
That
were
was the
the
best game
X-wing.
ever.
Huh?
X-wing.
Is that the one we're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, it
And you,
was it was a wireframe,
yeah.
and then oh, dude, that hands down best video game in an arcade in my ever. I've never played a video game as good as that. Even though the graphics are better on new video games, and I've taken my kids and played some of those new Star Wars games, and they're cool, but
Mhm.
nothing beats the original wireframe X-wing game with the controller, and you fought, and then you went into the channel to blow up the Death Star. That's the best game ever
Oh my
made.
gosh. And like that and what is the one that like Berserker needs more food? What is that one?
Gauntlet.
Gauntlet.
It
Yes.
was either Gauntlet or it was Golden Axe.
It was Gauntlet. Golden Axe was
Golden
dope.
Axe was kind of more side
Yeah,
scrolling.
you
Gauntlet
would
was the
ride those
overhead, look
weird
down.
things, like you would get a mount at some point.
Yeah, you had the archer, you had
Yeah.
the barbarian, the wizard, and there was one more I can't remember. What it was. But yeah, that was a good one.
It was incredible, and I remember that's like sort of those co-op games is where our natural partnership yet competitiveness came into play
Yeah, we've been playing co-op games
for 30
for
fucking years.
30 plus years, which is always my preference. I mean, you tried to drag me into PvP games several times over the years.
Yeah,
It's never been my forte.
yeah. Like I tried to pull you into the self-loathing that is League of Legends just because I had to, you know.
Well, before that, it was World of Warcraft. You always wanted to play the PvP servers, and so I joined you a few times.
Yeah, and you would get ganked if you were
Transferred a
just
character in, and then you talked me into like I remember we would follow some lower level guy and just stand near him the whole time and not attack him from the alternate faction, and then
yeah. That's when we were in a performance art ganking guild called Serial Killers, as in cereal you eat,
I remember I
and
made like and you had me make like a gnome assassin or something or
we were all
or not
we were
assassin thief.
we were all horde. So like
Hmm.
I think we were all like, I don't know, undead or something like that or whatever. Um, and I remember my name being Grape Nuts and being incredibly proud, like to throw down a picnic basket and squash somebody. Um, but like no, like our, it's really funny. You can really tell a lot about someone when they try to play with you in a game. And I remember very early on, this was even before you went into the military. It's probably because we both grew up with military,
Families.
yeah, families. But uh, we were incorporating really short, really succinct communication very early on. Like, right, left, left. I'm out of ammo. Go. Like, and uh, and I was always like so competitive. I'm like, you stole that extra bag of goodies. Like, I needed that ammo.
Yes.
Yes,
Well, I mean, you've been known over the years as the biggest ninja looter in any co-op gaming that I've ever played with. So,
yes, of course. And then I would always emotionally get too attached and blame it on you.
yeah.
But no, we over the years, like seriously over 30 years, I've tried to invite you have too, tried to invite other people to be in our party and play like larger games, and they just don't work out.
They don't last.
No, they don't play on our level, and it's not like we're good. It's more like we are effective. Like,
We've been a really good buddy team in co-op gaming for many, many years.
yeah, and to the point where like I know you're just going to steamroll in, and I'm just going to pick off people from at distance just so that you don't get hit from above, and then I'm going to come in and throw down health packs and crap like that.
Well, it's
And
just we've been gaming together so long, we know each other's gameplay,
well,
which
that's
makes us
it.
very effective in gaming.
You know that
Anybody
I'm going
that's
to get
played that
lost
long,
in a
you know.
map like instantly.
Yeah, I always know that you will lose track of where the heck we are, and so I've got to always keep track of where we're going.
The ADD kid who's like, I think there's a treasure chest over here, and I'm like, I don't know how to get back to you. Oh my god, that was the whole point of it, though. It's like the you know, I remember parents back in that era were like, they didn't want us to have too much screen time, and I get that,
No,
and you know that as a parent, you don't want your kids to just be like goo goo eyed in front of a television or a screen all day, but it did teach me. I don't know about you. It taught me leadership, collaboration, analytical thinking, logic. It taught me a lot of things like um, that I used at various points in my life, and feel like I got an education from.
no, I definitely agree with you. And even with my kids this day, there's no way that with my kids, they have to game, right? I can't, as much as I've been a gamer growing up, I'm not gonna like, I try to keep them gaming appropriately for their age and not spending too much time. There's a difference. Our parents wanted us more, get outside, be there. But as these generations become, like not allowing your kids to game when every other child that they hang out with, all their friends, like you can't limit their gaming because that's the new social aspect. And so if you tell your kids they can't game, or you seriously limit their gaming time, you're cutting them off from their social circles, which then kind of puts them on the outside. So it's a balance, right? Between healthy and making sure they're physically active and gaming so that they're interacting with their peers at school and friend groups. It's something our parents didn't deal with, us
Well, they didn't
now with
understand.
kids, you got to kind of balance that.
Yeah, they thought it was like watching television,
Yeah.
except for worse. Like for some reason they,
Oh yeah, yeah. It was way worse. It was rotting your brain.
yeah, yeah, and it's so funny. Like I remember like literally the satanic panic of the 1980s
The
and
D and
playing
D.
D&D and like having to hide our books because somebody's parents thought they were like some dark magic book that was going to lead us down a path of evil.
You
Um,
know, I think that's what really kickstarted our gaming was our D&D playing, right? It
yeah,
was that kind of fantasy world,
yeah,
where we got to like, you know, put ourselves in the role of elf rangers and dwarf warriors, and we played a lot of D&D before we even got into serious gaming,
that's
and
true.
I
Yeah,
think that springboarded us into the gaming because if you look at our early gaming when we were younger, it was all that kind of genre, right? We played a lot of those games, the role playing gamings, which was, I think, in that time was really kind of like the entry level stuff before you got into Nintendo and with Super Mario Brothers and those type of things. But those were the big games. But on the same time, I think that has affected the games that you and I have always liked to play. It's always been more of those role playing. The shooter games are fun. You and I have played a lot of Halo. We've played a lot of Rainbow Six. We've played a
Gears
lot
of
of,
War,
all those. But the games
Destiny.
we prefer are more those role playing, base building, character building games. And I think that dates back to our early days playing D&D.
Well, that's like I got my brother like gave me his first edition Dungeons and Dragons books, and somewhere along the way, someone walked off with those books, or my mom gave them away. And those
Well, you
books,
gave all mine away, so
yeah, like, did you say I gave yours away,
Yeah,
brother? Might have happened. Like literally, I think Jason Bryan, like
yeah,
has them still
exactly.
in his closet somewhere. But like Dungeons and Dragons, it's so funny to see headlines now where literally there was a headline this week where um, I believe it was Science, which is like the the official industry book for science and scientists and such and such and such, right? Like, um, that's where scientists get published. Anyways, they're talking about a long-term study that Dungeons and Dragons and that kind of role play had such a positive effect on people with depression and identity issues and things like that because they were able to project themselves in as a much stronger, more confident character or whatever, or someone that was, a little bit more wily and be able to kind of figure out that part of their personality and express it in a world that was safe and then come back to reality and feel like they uh, they learned something about themselves. And that
Absolutely.
story just hit like this week.
I can totally. I haven't read that, but I could totally see that because you're able to project kind of your inner thoughts, your inner, how you want to do things, how you view yourself in a game like that, and it's free form with no judgment because you're playing a role playing game, and I could see how that really good games. My eldest daughter, we've played some of the D&D games, some of the more board game oriented ones, and you've played with us, and she loves
Yeah.
those games, and I think it allows you kind of cut loose without judgment. And so I can see how, from that study, I could see how they could say, hey, that's great for kids because it opens their minds, allows them to kind of express themselves without being fear of judgment. Which is video games is a lot of that too, right? And that I think that's why I've enjoyed video games. I could act like a 20-year-old when I was 30. I could act like a 15-year-old when I was 20. I'm playing a
Yeah.
video game. I'm free, no judgment. I can be as stupid, silly as I want to be in a video game. And I think that's what everybody needs in this day and age.
Oh my God. Like just the ability, like we were never bar guys, right? Like we would go have a beer, when we were in our 20s or whatever. But now as we're adults, we rarely like we rarely go to the bars and watch games, right? Like it's just not, not really our things. But our guys' nights are which I've been letting you down terribly because I've just been overworking this year. Our guys' nights are hopping on and playing games for 4 hours, and and just just bullshitting about life, and that's like it's really funny because games have immediate consequences, and this is part of that study is the fact that like um other forms of therapy are and education are really passive, whereas games have immediate consequences. And I've worked over the years about in the STEM education world and bringing games and education together more closely and examining ways to like communicate, you know, education, general education, right, in a way that is more proactive, like a video game, immediate consequences, positive reinforcement, all that stuff, and that is like even as an adult, we go through life not always being validated, not always being rewarded, not always being whatever, but you hop into a video game and suddenly, you know, an epic drops, and you're like, yes, I grinded 25 years in World of Warcraft to get the one epic that I'd never have ever had. And it feels like such a win. Or like, for us in Borderlands, like you get the golden chest and like 9 million guns come out and you're like, I don't even know what to do with all these.
Yeah, I look at it a little different. I mean, those are definitely things. For me, video games are not so much the risk, the reward and the endorphins, you get from a rewarding experience. For me, it's about connection, right? And
Yep.
um, it's the ability to connect with good friends, and this has been very important for you and I over the years as we've connected. We've probably talked more hours and hours and hours on video games than we've ever talked on the phone. I talked to my wife about it. My wife talks to her friends, and they're on the phones for hours. I'm a guy. Most guys don't chat on the phone, but when you and I are gaming, we'll talk and chat while we're playing for 4 hours, and that is a guy talk, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
gal talk too. I mean, women too, but for us, it's more the way to stay connected with friends that are distant, so that you're almost together, right? It's through video games, you're hanging out, even though geographically you're in a different area. You and I have been gaming. I've been in Europe, living in Europe, or living in all over the
That
world.
time
We,
difference
we
was
have not lived
brutal.
close to each other in probably 34 years, but we've been like we're in the same room through video games,
Hmm.
and that has been our hangout space, right? We're not sitting on the same couch together, we're not drinking beer, but you're drinking beer at your house, I'm drinking beer at my house, we're playing a game, and it's like we're in the same room, and I think that's where gaming is really like a really important thing with people, right? It's about a connection, it's about companionship over distance. That's where gaming has been really important to me. Because honestly, like if you and I hadn't been gaming together, I probably would have gamed less. When we're both really busy, and we can't connect, I don't really game that much. But when like we're able to connect, I game a lot. And it's because it's a connection thing with me and my friends. It's not me because I want to play a video game. It's me wanting to play a game with a friend.
Yeah. It You hit the nail on the head. I fell in love with games because it was a community. For the community was just us at first, right? And then I found these other online worlds like World of Warcraft you mentioned, like literally where I joined guilds and I played for years with people whom I never met and yet felt close to in an interesting way.
Yeah.
Uh, but I remember you being deployed. I don't remember. Did we play while you were deployed? Did you have
No.
a connection? No, no, I didn't think so.
Now, when I was deployed, I played a game which was, in my downtime when I could, because I had a gaming PC forward with me, and I played Hellgate London, but that was just a local game. We didn't
Yeah,
play ever while I was deployed.
yeah.
We
But
played while I was stationed overseas, but
that's
not
right. When
not
you're
while
in
I was.
Italy, that time difference was brutal for us
Yeah,
because
because I think you were in California and I
I
was
was
in
in
Italy.
California and I'd either have to get up super early in the morning or you would stay up all night long and fall asleep at the controller, and literally I'd see your guy just start walking into walls. I'm like,
I think
Eric, wake
most
up.
times it was me staying up all night because I don't think you can wake up early.
No, no, I couldn't. Not at that time, not at that time at all.
Shannon used to come in and find me falling asleep at the computer game keyboard or something. So
I
I
think,
think I remember a few times you yelling at me, as I'm walking
oh
into a
yeah,
wall or
oh
something.
yeah, yeah, like Diablo 2 or something like that, where I'm
Oh,
like,
yes. Well,
yo,
World of Warcraft was a big one we played. We played
yes,
a
World of
lot of World of
Warcraft, where
Warcraft.
I'd see your guy just walk off into the distance and then just like just disappear, like hard out,
Yeah, I think our most over the years, the longest game that we played was World of Warcraft. Because that's an epic game that's like defines multiplayer online gaming. We've played a lot of games and we fluctuate a lot over the years, but one we've played just I don't even want to know the amount of hours you and I have put into World of Warcraft together, but we've
Or
played a lot of hours of that. And it when it first started, we there was no we would just chat text, and I think we would have a phone call. Sometimes we'd have a
yeah,
phone call running, and
because it didn't
then
have integrated voice over IP,
correct.
and
And then you
we didn't really
started
know
Discord.
about.
You found Discord, and you just started us a Discord talk. So we would
Well,
talk over
Discord wasn't
Discord.
around. Like, I don't think Discord was around for vanilla.
No,
We
no, it was a phone. We were on the phone,
we
or
were
we
on
were
the
just chatting
phone,
and
and there was
rapidly
this,
typing messages to each other.
yeah, and there was this other thing called Murmur or something like that. I can't remember what it was,
There
but
was
there
a
was,
chat we used before Discord. We tried out something you found,
yeah,
and we
yeah. Yeah.
started it
So,
out.
um, Curse Voice was one of the biggest ones, but before that, it was almost like
We Skyped. I remember we used to
Skype.
Skype.
Yeah, we did Skype. Um, but I think the reason why we kept gravitating back towards WoW is because I was addicted to that game.
Yeah,
Um, and I don't mean it in a bad sense, but I mean it in a like I was going through some hard mentally some rough times, and I had a lot of alone time on my hand. And so I would just like come home from work every day and just log in.
it's an easy
And
game to disconnect on. I mean, it's
yeah,
not. You don't have to be into it like any of the first person shooters where you're like in focus. You could kind of be just kind of doing your thing, relaxing your brain,
yeah, you could just be like fishing.
clicking.
I, I literally discovered the fun of fishing after 20 years of playing that game. I was like, oh wow, I never knew that you could get stuff from fishing. That's a game that keeps on giving. It's a um, but I there was always World of Warcraft, but you and I really, really like do incredibly well with like with shooters, non-competitive, like always, PVE shooters like
Yeah.
Division, Gears of War, Halo. I want to say like maybe like we mixed it up with a Call of Duty multiplayer in there a couple times and
It's the one we've been playing. Like we really liked. It was
Borderlands.
it's kind of the rainbow. Not well, Borderlands. Yeah, that one hands down. But there was
Yeah.
the Rainbow Six-ish one. I'm trying to remember the name of the game.
Just Cause,
No, no, no. It was the one where the United States gets taken over
The
and we're
Division,
agents. What is that one?
the Division.
The Division. Division is the one we really rocked at. Yeah, yeah. We played the crap out of that. We beat it. We got into the expansion. But what usually happens with you and I now is we find a game we like it, and then they come up with another one and they make it more complicated, and it becomes less fun. It's like you have the perfect level of fun where
Yeah,
you're enjoying gaming with a friend, but then you add so many freaking crazy dynamics, and maybe it's great for the kids that are like, they are this newer generation, but like, it's like, wow, you've really complicated it, and I can't, and it makes it work to play the game.
I I call it sort of the Madden fallacy, right? Which is like
Yeah,
Madden used to be a
Madden's a good
very
one.
simple game that it was all about your play choices, which really helped you beat other people. And and then they decided to add so much complexity to Madden with like ball flight, whether high trajectory, middle trajectory, low trajectory, 18 different buttons to juke and all this stuff, calling audibles, which that's okay. That's great. I can figure that out. Uh, Putting people in motion. And then
Yeah.
suddenly I'm like, I've got to hold down left trigger, press this button, and claw 14 other buttons in order just to get my guy to hike the ball.
I bet if they released a Madden 2005, like call it Madden Original with the new teams and players, it would probably sell pretty good.
Dude, it would probably fly off the shelves. Like in and literally it's for old gamers like us, right? Like let's just be real. Simplicity is good. We like easy mode. Like we want a challenge, but we want to play through easy mode first just so that we can see what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
And and with some games, even like regular mode is freaking hard. You know, like
Well, that's why I think you and I now, we love base builder games when we do play.
yeah,
We
yeah.
love base builders.
You're so organized, and I'm like, I'm playing with wood. I just pooped. That's a reference from Ark, in case anybody thinks I poop.
I always got mad at Eric because he's putting the wrong things in the wrong chests. I'm like, hey, look, man, I got this chest for all the crafting gear, and you're putting shit that's not crafting gear in the chest.
Oh my god, do you remember your birthday and Ben and Conan and
Oh, yeah, that got crazy.
I so for the viewers at home, the Conan the Barbarian MMO game, really good game.
Yeah, I rented a server. I think I rented out a server
Yeah,
for
yeah,
like a
you
month or
had a
2 months.
dedicated server.
A dedicated server where we could just grind and play.
Yeah, and something happened on a timeline, like at every such and such hour.
Yes. There was like a big horde attack or
Yeah.
something.
And and I don't know what I was doing wrong. I really just don't. But like our friend Ben had spent all night long the night before Eric's birthday building this base, which honestly I find no fun. Like if you've already done all these cool things that I didn't get to be a part of, like it defeats the purpose of me being there. Am I just there now, right? But long story long, like like we had played for hours and hours and hours, celebrated your birthday. It was such a good vibe. You went to bed, and Ben and I were still playing, and I think you could cause the horde raid, right? Whatever it is, I can't remember, and I think I just caused it for fun. I was like, I want chaos, and it destroyed our entire base, and Ben lost like all this gear that he had grinded
Yeah.
for, uh and yeah, I was sorry, uh but I wasn't that sorry. I was like, dude, this was
It's a
for Eric.
game. That's what happens. You got to rebuild.
This was for Eric's birthday. I'm sorry you lost your third tier of leather item. We can remake it tomorrow. Um, and wow, that really strained our. That's when I stopped inviting other people to play games with us.
And that
Actually,
really that killed our sesh on that server too. I think that's why I didn't renew the sesh. It just kind of like was a
no,
bad vibe. It wasn't fun anymore
it
because
wasn't
too many
fun. It
people
left a
got.
bad taste in our mouth, and we realized like there was so much more game that we hadn't yet played of that too.
Yeah. It's good because when you and I play, we don't care. It's like what happens, happens. You know, it's like
No,
if someone screws something up, it's like whoops.
like
But you bring other people in that are more serious about their things. It goes into gaming, right? So when you're gaming with people, you need to game with like-minded people. You don't want to game with folks that are too serious about something or get like, you and I are very easygoing
laissez
gamers.
faire,
What
man.
happens, happens, and we're like, ah, crap, that sucks. And we
Yep.
may give each other crap about it, be like, hey, you're an idiot. Why the hell did you let that happen? But it's still
And we
fun.
have like we have hard rage quit when like what the fuck, I haven't gotten anything in 14 dungeons. And you're like, I'm done with this game, I'm done. And like we've
Yes.
both done that multiple times. um but like
What is the term we coined for each other? And I even got my daughter in on. I'm like,
oh, you're a chapter 5 man.
you're a chapter five man. I'm a chapter five.
What was that? What game was that?
That's the newest Diablo.
Yeah, that's right. And it was like, oh, you're only a chapter 4 man. Hmm.
I'm a chapter five. And my eldest even got into that. She's like, well, Uncle Eric's a chapter four guy. You're a chapter five guy.
It's great using your children against you. You know, it
I
really
do. I
makes
use them
pranks.
against you as much as I can.
It really makes pranks very satisfying. Um, what's okay? Let me ask you a question. What's my most annoying like gaming habit?
Of freaking not knowing where the hell we are. You're losing track of where you are. It's like you're always going the wrong freaking direction.
I, you know, as in life, I have to have the GPS on at all times. It like it's pure
Eric, in a
ADHD
game, you've got a mini map. The GPS is always on, and you still get lost. I still don't understand it.
because I can't like step into the map and really get it. Oh, and three-dimensional maps that suddenly drop down and suddenly you are actually in the map are even worse. Like I want that, but like I still
It's also you're really slow. You're always behind me because I'm always like charging forward through the
yes.
map, and you're always like, do 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 do.
I'm like I want to enjoy this. I want to savor this experience in these dwarven
I'm like
tunnels.
three kill bosses ahead, and you're like still going back looking for chests and looting the walls, and all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff.
Hmm. You know, like it would. I I like all these games because we know exactly how each other play, and literally we could set up for those gaming situations. Like, what's the Remnant? Remnant came out of
Remnant was a
nowhere,
good one.
and it's just like a really good game. Hub and spoke
It's
shooter.
not super fast paced.
No,
It's not super linear. But it's linear, so you don't have to try to figure out where you're going, and you can play it at a pace. You don't have to. Actually, I think you're punished for running too fast, right? And so
yeah,
it's a
it's technically like a linear open world.
yeah,
So
that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
yeah, you can go
Or I
from A
think
to
it's one
B,
of those ones where it's dynamic create. What do you call it? Where the boards generate.
procedurally generated
It's
levels.
procedurally generated, so you're never playing the same one. Actually, I wanted to make one point, just because this is funny, because as we were talking about our gameplay, as many times as you and I have tried to alter our character classes and character, and like Eric's going to play the barbarian smasher and I'm going to play the sniper, we always end up back where I'm the guy that charges in and Eric's the caster or the guy that slows down.
I'm
Because
always a healer. And that's because
I just can't do it. I can't play this. I'm always like the guy that's got to charge in and start beating things immediately. And
like
Eric's the
in
slower, and you're the slower guy that's got to
well,
cast.
that's it. Like in the division, I love that. I love that whatever role it's called. Like
I'm the breacher.
where like literally I throw down a couple of turrets and one of the turrets also heals if you're in the general
Yeah.
direction of it.
And
I
always the guy with the shield and the gun that runs forward and charges things.
but you know what I also appreciate about how we play games is we don't really read a lot about them. You know, so
No.
we don't overthink min maxing,
It's exploring by experience.
and we don't like we only look up how to do something once we've failed like 10 times.
Yes.
Because
But
like
honestly, as soon as I start looking stuff up, I start in the long term enjoying the game less. So that's why overcomplicated games where I have to start looking at things. The only game exception to that was what was the one we played just all the time? I think it was Diablo 3 on Xbox, where we started like looking at builds. But we played that game like beyond the end of it, and
yeah,
we were just like looking for ways to because we liked that game so much to extend the game. We're
I
like,
think it was Diablo
what's the
2.
best barbarian build with the whirlwind build, or
I think it was Diablo 2, not 3, because we felt
was
like
it
Diablo
two?
3 was slower.
Okay, I thought 4 was the slower, the new one. What is? I
Okay.
don't even know what the new Diablo is that we played last. What is the number?
I don't know.
I think it's
you know
4. I
which
think 3
year.
was the one we played a lot. We played it a lot during COVID. Remember?
Yeah. Okay, maybe
I think
that
it was
was it.
3.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
that was the one where we extended play and we were playing seasons and you would restart. And we played the crap out of that game. And
yeah.
all we wanted with the next Diablo was to give us new boards. But instead they came up with a new game, which we did not like as much.
No, no. And you know, like the worst part about being in the industry and is I can't like publicly say like, oh man, I why did they have to do that? I don't like that. I can never be just a player. Like it's only now that I've like started my own company and don't work for any of the bigger publishers that I can say, oh, I really like this game. This game wasn't for me, and I know what it takes to bring any game to life. So I'll never like just crap on a game
But there's a lot
because
I can imagine.
yeah, because there's just it is a minor miracle that anyone gets any kind of game done. Um, but like there's some games that are super popular that I'll just never really get into. And I've had I've had consequences because I maybe tweeted about it. Um, Specifically GTA. Like I like the story of GTA. I like the story modes of GTA. The action, the shooting, I find not the greatest. And, all of the other elements to it, the driving and all that stuff, I found very stiff, right? Like I didn't feel like the gameplay was as good as everybody says. And then, where I was working at the time, we were licensing across a bunch of different video game IP, and the Rockstar person was like, "You need to tell your guys to stop talking about GTA." And I'm like, "What does it matter? I'm one dude. You have already sold 8 million units in the first 20 seconds. Like, I'm nobody, right?" And it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever had to experience. Is I literally uh, this is when I would get hot, right? I literally would be like, "Give me his fucking phone number. Give me his fucking phone number right now, and I want to tell him what an idiot he is." Like this industry is made up of creative people who don't shit on each other's games. If they do, they're terrible. But if they say game's not for them, I mean, that whole tweet was like, "This game is amazing. Everybody's loving it. It's just not for me." And it was in response to someone saying, "What's one game that everybody loves that's not for you?" It wasn't like, "What's the worst game of all time?" It was like, "That was the one game that everybody loves that's not for me." It
Yeah.
just never was. I'm probably going to get another like angry tweet from somebody at Rockstar.
You know,
Uh,
it's interesting, Eric. And it's an interesting perspective. We haven't talked about this before. So we're both in the software industry. I'm on a different side of the house, working with software platforms and stuff, and not gaming. But in my side of the house, when we find things that users like, we try to minimize change and provide more things they can do. But from a UI perspective, you always try to lock it in. Once you find the user that these users love this UI, they like how it controls, we're going to add more capability, more things they can do. But on the gaming industry, when they're like, people love this game, let's change everything this next version and give them more. But why do they change the UI, change the controls, change? What is that? Because they're very different dynamics from a business perspective and a gaming perspective. Business side, you don't want to change a lot of stuff. You want to lock it in so people
in
know how to do
theory,
everything. But in the gaming, they change a lot of stuff. What do you
in
think the
theory,
reason is that?
video games are like that too. Like they lock in and add more features. The problem is, um, when they add more features, they have to change the UI in order to access those new features. Like let's call it the Madden fallacy again. Like they add all these hot routes, and suddenly you got to claw in order to get a hot route off or something. Um, so the complexity actually takes away from the experience unless you're a very specific type of gamer. The min maxer let's call that a persona of gamer, right? The min maxer loves all that, loves a tech tree or ability tree that is 19 billion nodes long, right? Whereas you and I have gone from the first version of a game to the second and been completely lost by the tech trees.
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't they just keep to the three tech trees, and the paths are pretty static, but I get that staticness. It's okay, right? Like Division 1 to Division 2 added more complexity, but we were able to kind of wrap our heads around that complexity. It wasn't bad.
That
Um,
wasn't too bad. Some of them are really, really bad.
yeah,
The Diablos are a really good explanation of that, right? Like,
yeah.
I
And
think the larger community for Diablo absolutely fell in love with Diablo 3. Like, that is probably their most successful Diablo they've ever had. And then they came out with Diablo 4 and they changed everything. Instead of just new storyline, new control, I mean, they changed everything. And I think that turned off a lot of the Diablo community in my mind. I'm just curious if you think so too.
I uh I'd have to look at like review scores, and review scores aren't always telling. Like I'd have to look at the user scores. I think your intuition is correct though. Um I think the story was amazing in Diablo 4, was cool, but the game felt slower,
Yeah.
which the game felt slower but yet was more complex. Um and uh I remembered that the thing that turned me off was the min maxing of getting set pieces and getting all the pieces to work together and like the ideal
Yeah,
build.
that was a huge part.
Yeah, like that was a huge part of 3 that was like really easily done.
Yeah,
In
you
4,
did it, you figured it out, you ran the missions,
yeah,
you
in,
reran them 100 times to get your thing, but you knew how to do it.
in 4 it was really it was harder. I don't know.
Yeah. It
Like
was more difficultly challenging. And that was just one I didn't want to go down a rat hole on talking about a specific game, but
yeah,
you
but
know,
like and for the record, we both love that game.
yeah.
It just changed, and we're old and we fear change.
Well, that's why we don't like it when we update from Windows 10 to Windows 11 now at this age, right?
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Well, excuse
Man,
you, you're a Mac user, you don't have to
no,
worry
I'm
about
still on
that.
MS DOS. Um, but
The
like,
one that did it well was, in another love of game for us that we've played all of them was Borderlands. We've played all the Borderlands. We've loved all of them. They had a hiccup with Borderlands, not the current one, the one before it.
Borderlands 3.
Uh, it was at Borderlands 3. You and I played it, and we never finished it because they made it so hard and so less fun. And it was like, crap, we like the story, but this game isn't fun. Well, the newest Borderlands, it's like they realized they had made a mistake and they made it fun again. So this newest Borderlands is like fun. We played it for my birthday this past year. We played like for 5 hours, I think, on my birthday.
Yeah. I
I locked myself in the basement, poured a bottle of bourbon, and we played for 5 hours of Borderlands, and it was fun again. It wasn't like the last one. They like re-simplified things, and I think that's great when gaming companies do that. They go, "Hey, let's make sure this is a fun game for everybody."
well, and I think everybody. Well, I know for a fact every developer goes in with the best intentions, and um, and I think they get trapped into thinking they have to change it up from one, one sequel to the next, or else, you know, the media or players won't think that there's any progress being made. Because if you have no change between a sequel, people are like, this is a big DLC. That's all it is. And honestly, the industry, I think Destiny did it really well. Like, yeah, just give me Destiny 2 with like 5 really big DLCs or whatever, like more of more. Um, but in the industry, everybody goes into, you know, a game with the best intentions, and then somewhere along the line there's player testing, there's feedback from so many different vectors, and there can be too many cooks in the kitchen, like even from PR, right? Like I've literally sat down with a developer and I said a lot of this has to change. This is not fun. Like where's the core game loop? And I was, obviously a lot more polite. I'm always respectful, but I was obviously a lot more polite than how I just put it right now. But now being a developer, I can see how that happens because we have gotten feedback from a lot of different vectors and we've moved in those directions and completely wasted dev cycles in order to jump over an investor's hoop or a publisher's hoop, and then they like, oh yeah, that's cool, we didn't need that, and you're suddenly like, we spent 6 months doing that for you. And I think that happens on the publishing side, for second party and first party games, which are owned and operated studios, and then internal studios, and then owned and operated but still external studios, right? um, so uh, yeah, complexity is also in the eye of the beholder. Like we see complexity. Um,
I see it as change mostly, right?
yeah, yeah,
You learn it, you like the game, you learn the controls, and the complexity becomes when they well, two things you hit on it, right? It's changing the controls or changing the progression system.
yes,
And let me ask you this, because you kind of hit on it, and that made me think of something. Um, where do you think, and this is something I've kind of talked about, and I talk about it with my kids too. It's like, we're in an industry now, um, and I see it on my side of the house too, right? And it's like where you have stop having new versions of software coming out, like new games, and it's the downloadable content to expand, right? I mean, if you look on the mobile side is always just an upgrade of the current game,
It's
right?
always
You're not getting a new mobile game. It's just new, boom, and it updates. So if you look at our console gaming, which you and I love to do, and like, when are they going to stop going like, hey, no one's buying a disc game with X something 5 anymore? They're just downloading the next thing or on the game. When do we stop and just start going new downloadable content? And you lock in a game that people are super popular and it's just new content. And I mean, what was
That's
the one
World of
that
Warcraft,
they did that
right?
for?
Like
I think they did that for. Oh, what was the one we really loved? Destiny. Remember Destiny?
Destiny
Destiny
was
did that model. And you and I played the crap out of Destiny. We beat it, and then we beat Destiny 2. We beat the crap out of it, and then Destiny 3. We started to play. I don't know why we didn't, because that one is the one where they kind of just said, no, we're not coming out with Destiny, or no, maybe they didn't. They didn't come out with Destiny 3. I think they just came out with new content.
and then we loved Destiny's Child too.
Yeah, well, of course, everybody does. But we did not play through the new content. But to this day, as I've gone back and I've downloaded all those new Destiny contents, I've never gone back and played them. But I don't know why, because it's like massive new content without
Because
new
it's a
game.
lot to relearn.
Well, I will say this: we played Destiny 2, and then we took a break for 3 years, and then they came out with all the new content.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like,
Forgotten
we
King
need to go
and
play Destiny 2 again just to relearn the content. So
yeah.
that is there. I mean, that's definitely there. I think if the gaming industry wants to move to that model instead of like a new version and do like new content, it's got to be planned so that it's not like multi years between the new content, because people are going to step away and then be like, oh, the new content came out, but I haven't played that game in a long time.
Well, like that's what essentially Call of Duty does. It has multiple studios running in parallel, so that every year there's an update to Black Ops or the multiplayer.
When's the last time you and I played a Call of Duty game? It's been a long time.
Probably
I think it was Modern Warfare.
yeah, probably was Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
I love those games.
The problem is co-op their versus. You and I don't play a lot of versus games.
No, I don't mind. It's just like
I mind them, Eric, because I can't play against 16-year-old kids anymore.
yeah.
Every time I've played with my kids and I'll jump in to play like a PvP Call of Duty or something, and I'm out in about minute and a half. I'm out. And I'm just like, okay, well, that was fun.
Yeah, like
I don't have the finger fast speed.
I remember multi-prestiging whichever Call of Duty it was. Like, there's so many Call of Duties, I don't remember which one it was.
What
And
was
not
the
really,
PvP you and I played really well and we rocked on?
no,
I think it was early Destiny. I think it was Destiny 1.
yes, because it had objectives and things like that.
You and I just crushed PvP. I think we did on Halo too. That was back when we played a lot of PvP. Halo and Destiny 1.
Yeah.
I think we were really good at PvP.
I played a lot of Call of Duty and prestiged pretty high, but I didn't like it. Like it in the same way that playing League of Legends like made me not really like competitive play as much, like because people take that stuff way too seriously.
Well, League of Legends broke me on competitive play, and you sucked me into that game.
Yeah, because like
When people started yelling at me in the middle of a gameplay
oh my
and like telling me
gosh,
I sucked and I should like go hurt myself, I was
yeah,
like, I don't want to play with these people.
no, not at all. I yeah, man, I think like I think that like there's been a couple of games. So like, which game do you think has caused the most conflict between you and I?
Most conflict between you and I?
Yeah, like literally, it wasn't working. I was getting heated, or you were getting heated, or whatever.
It's probably League of Legends.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
because I think there's a couple times I said I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to bed, and I'm going, and I would log off.
you rage
You
quit, and
know,
I'm like,
not that you were yelling at me, but you were just like, hey, you guys, you know,
I don't know how to teach sometimes.
yeah.
Like
That game was one where like people didn't. There's no learning curve either, right? That's one where it's not like you're playing not PvP and you learn how to play the game, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to play
yeah,
PvP
because the
now. It's like
bots mode was too
you're
easy.
playing there, and people expect you as soon as you join a group play to be awesome at it, and you're like,
Yeah.
I just started, and they would get mad if you didn't control your lane or. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, I've been playing this game for 2 hours, and you're like talking to me like I'm the biggest piece of shit that
I know. I'm
ever
like,
played a video
you've already
game.
lost top lane. Okay, everybody, rotate bottom. Rotate bottom. You know, like it that working at Riot, and I just connected with my old boss, and actually like thanked him for something that he did a long time ago for me. But working Riot kind of broke me in the same way League of Legends broke you. Like that, it was such a competitive space. It was so try hard everywhere. Uh, it was the game and the company were one and the same, which is why it is so gosh darn successful because like it is competitive. It was the most player focused game in the world. It it really truly elevated its like status amongst gamers as hey, if you're good at League of Legends, you're a gamer. You know, like
Is that still a big game? I don't hear much about it anymore. My kids don't play it; they've never heard of it, so that's why I'm kind of
they've
curious.
expanded the world. So they have a fighter game now. They're working on an MMO, um, and
But League of
Arcane.
Legends Core is that like a big game these days?
What's that?
Still, is League of Legends just as is? Is that a
It's a big game. It's a big
is it?
game. I
I
don't know.
judge everything off my teenage kids now because they know every game, but
Yeah,
they're very focused on very different games.
very much so. So League of Legends is long in the tooth, um, especially in the U.S. Um, throughout Europe, it's still. I mean, throughout Europe and Asia, it's still very popular. Um, but I think like the challenge for Riot is they've created so many characters. Like their only way to refresh the game is to add a new character. And I think that mentality actually held them back
Yeah.
because I always felt that adding new maps, because originally there was three maps. There
Yep.
was just basically the one lane, then there was the traditional League of Legends map,
And then the single lane where you're just
and,
going up the demo.
well, and then there was Twisted Tree Line.
Yeah.
And so like we removed Twisted Tree Line, and suddenly it was just ARAM and regular.
I love ARAM. ARAM's the only one I was ever good at because you didn't have to manage the lane. You were just going right up the middle.
Yeah, and I always felt that there was a place for a MOBA where nobody like with a procedurally generated map. Like and Riot has launched a couple of interesting maps during seasons. So it's not just the two now. I'm starting to remember some of the other stuff they've done, but like I think they really missed out on new maps as DLC.
Hmm.
Um, uh, but you know, they're incredibly smart. They're incredibly successful, uh, and they're building a roster much like Marvel did or Disney. You know, like literally they have 900 characters that they can tell stories about. So they're fantastic. Um, you know, I think like I want to go back to uh, one thing and then maybe wrap up with you is um, how important gaming was to our friendship.
Dude,
Like,
I think gaming, and I mentioned this earlier, right? We started as friends playing Pool of Radiance. Um, we've done, all through our high school as we got in trouble and did all sorts of other stuff, But as we continued our life beyond high school, gaming was how you and I kept in contact because we're dudes. Talking on the phone about stuff is just not a guy thing, We kept in contact on the phone. I remember
we
talking
would
with
call and talk for one
our
minute, and it
long
would be about what
talks.
time we were getting on to play games.
Yeah, yeah. Our long talks, hanging out was all games, and I think if it wasn't for you and I's connection via the gaming thing, we would not have we would still be close friends, but this is what's kept us the closest over the years is our connection between gaming, because you and I are very different, right? But our connection is video gaming, and when we were single, it was women, but we're not single anymore. But our connection was gaming, right? This is
Yeah.
what we did. You and I would spend hours gaming together. We would spend hours playing together. We would talk.
Because sometimes we were
And
too poor
that
to
is
go
how
out,
we
like
stayed
when you
connected
were
over the
like
years.
young in the army and I was like young in my career, we're like, I can't afford to go out. Neither can I. You want to play some Halo? Yeah. Um, but you're right.
Yeah, I know. I honestly think, and this is, I tell my kids this too, as they've got friends, and they're gaming with friends and stuff, and I'm like, hey, this is a great, my son, he hangs out and he plays games with his buddies, and it's the same reason, where I limit. I don't want them gaming, playing on a computer all the time. I want them outside playing sports, doing stuff, and they all play sports, but it's like I don't limit when they're gaming with their friends because I'm like, hey, this is a connection thing, especially in this generation, right? And especially some of their friends that they don't see very often. Anytime, like my eldest is like, oh, my friend in South Carolina wants to play on a game. I'm like, go game. She's in South Carolina. She wants to play a game. Go do that. And like, you don't need to. We were gonna do this, but your friend down in South Carolina wants to game with you. Go play with her.
You get it.
It's
Because
because the
that's
way
what
that
we
you and
do.
I have connected over the years. I'm
Yeah.
like, nah. If they're distance, I have no limit on gaming with friends that are distance. I limit gaming a little when their friends are down the street. And I'm like, nah, you can go hang out with your friend. But if they're out of state, I'm like, yep, no, you go play games with your friend. That's a connectivity. And I love that's what gaming does is it connects you with people that are not local, right?
Yeah. I
And it allows you to keep those personal close connections.
yeah. Yeah. And you hit on something else that I find really awesome is you've been able to share gaming with your kids. And
Yeah, love it.
and it's not just video
I'm
games,
not good at their games, but I still game.
but it's not just video games. It's your love of tabletop and,
Yeah.
RPG-ish card games and board games in general. Both you and your wife like are gamers and, and love, love both the fantasy and the
My wife's a button masher. I wouldn't call her a gamer. She's a button masher. She will play video games, but
yeah, but
only
your
if she can
mother-in-law is a
smash
gamer.
buttons.
She is a gamer. But no, like, what's that like to share that with your kids?
Dude, I'm gonna tell you, it's awesome when we get a game that my kids are generally interested in that is kind of in my interest area, right? I mean, the kids all love board games. They play a lot of games. They love Pokemon games and stuff, which isn't my thing. But when I can bring them into like, and you've been a part of it too, the D&D board games, some of these other weird role playing games, Arkham Asylum,
Game is
and when
so
the kids jump
overly
in there
complex.
and they really enjoy them, it's awesome, right? Because it's like, hey, I play games with the kids and I enjoy playing the games with kids, but when it's a game that I actually really love and they enjoy it too, it's like a bonus, right? It's like, holy crap, my kids played this game that I really like, and I love it. My eldest Mana, she is probably the closest in game like that I am, and I love playing games with her.
Hmm.
And now my son's kind of getting in there too. My middle one, she's probably not in that game space. She's actually probably the least likely one to play a video game. But the two, oldest and my youngest, they love it, and I love the fact that they love those games. And I have so limited time with work and everything going on in life, and so when I can play a board game with them, that's a part of my background and
Yeah.
something that I've gone with.
When
It's a
you
great
can decompress while still
yeah.
spending time with your kids,
Yeah.
that's like
It's
a
awesome.
bonus. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, um, I appreciate you for always being my co-op buddy, but also my best friend. And, you know, all of this random conversation about gaming together and the community is part of the prologue that led me to my career. So if it hadn't been playing games with you throughout college, when you were in the army and I was somewhere else, I was in Oklahoma or somewhere like that in college or doing whatever, like I may have not have found my industry. So thank you for being my gaming buddy and always prioritizing our time, in that virtual world the same way I did, and when we could, we always did. When we couldn't, it was no big deal, right? Like, it's just a thing, but thank you.
Yeah, brother. I'm going to tell you too. We went to very different tracks, and obviously you've mentioned it several times. It's your thing, but I went in the military. I did lots of things there. Now I'm post-military, and I'm in the cybersecurity community. But a lot of what you've done with your career and the guidance you've shared with me has shaped what I've done post retirement, and how I've looked at technology problems and stuff. The things you've done. So, you know, everybody looks at the gaming community as very separate, but it's very linked to everything else from a technological perspective. Lessons learned there can be applied in different places, from industry
Mm-hmm.
to client satisfaction. They're very overlapping, and I've appreciated. You're my best friend, man. I'm gonna have to
That's
give you
really
a
good,
throw up
buddy.
at the end of the
I
video.
love you. Um, well, let
But
me.
no, I mean it's definitely true, and so our whole upbringing together, gaming and everything, it's shaped my life, and you don't want to say it's just shaped like our friendship, but our gaming through our life has shaped my life and how I
Yeah,
do things. So
our
it's a
our
huge
shared
thing.
some of our shared memories happened in games, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and some of our best shared memories. It's just like so silly and not so silly. It's just a part of this technological generation, and that is happening. I love that you recognize that in your kids too. So this has been Corrupted Memory Card. This first episode, Prologue to a Gamer, uh, is really about how much gaming means to me because it's kept me so close to my best friend. In the next episodes, uh, you're gonna you're gonna follow the thread, I hope, to how I ended up in the games industry. And like the Forrest Gump of the games industry, I've just been very fortunate and very randomly at some of the most pivotal points in the games industry's history. Standing in the background of the photo, similar to Forrest Gump, and how blessed I've been to work with some of the greatest game developers of all time, and how I'm trying to take that knowledge into being a developer, into being, someone who creates now instead of just talks about video games. So I hope you follow along, and thank you for joining us.